Alright, polypainting. Polypainting looks quite intimidating when you see it happening, on YouTube and stuff. You see these very beautiful, very elegant sort of things coming through. When I've seen a guy who was painting like a Japanese guy, it was like a Japanese warrior's face or head or something, and it was very impressive to see it sort of him breathing life and colour into that. It was very cool to see that happening. And I think it really just put people off when they see it happening in action. Like polypainting is just so hard and so like impossibly difficult to master. But polypainting isn't actually that difficult at all, really. One thing, there's a couple of things you need to know is that you can't polypaint on back caps. You can only polypaint on these standard materials. I'm just gonna go with fast shader. Because it's got a nice amount of diffuse and shading information on there to see your colours, because you want to be able to see what you're painting. You notice now when I try to select colours, it automatically updates the mesh, which is not what we want. What we want to do is to find a dark colour. I've always found that starting off dark is a lot easier than working your way around the other way. I'm going to go quite dark, quite a dark blacky kind of blue. And what you need to do now is go to colour and hit fill object. But a couple of things to bear in mind. By default, you will have just Ziad selected. I don't think if that's default or not, but maybe. But basically, Ziad means you're sculpting in the positive Z direction with the brushes. Z stub is the opposite of that. M stands for material. Yeah, you can paint in materials, which is awesome. RBG stands for colour, which is basically, obviously colour, and that one is both of these combined. I'm only interested in colour, as I'm just trying to get texture from this for my game model. But if you want to paint materials too, you can go ahead and do that if you want to experiment with that. But I'm sticking with colour. I'm going to turn that down for the sake of turning it down, and I'm going to keep my colour intensity to full. So when I hit fill object, it's going to fill it with the colour I have selected. So now when I click around here, it's not going to update and refresh the colour of my model because it has its own personal, colour. And before I go in and start to paint this up, I just want to cover something which some of you may want to use. I'm trying to make this as helpful as possible to most people. If you come to the texture tab, and you have like those, you get those like orthographic pictures of people's faces where it's like side, front, and there's like neck, top of the head. Well, there's a way in Zbrush to like basically just project it straight onto the mesh and get all that information from there. It's very, very quick for making realistic faces, and all you need to do is just press import, click a picture or texture, whatever you want to use, and once it's in here, you select that image like so, and then you want to hit this button here, which is add to spotlight. And once you've added it to spotlight, these are just typical, you want to have this and you want to flip it, rotate it, whatever, you have the ability to do that. Once you've added that to spotlight, you can hit on and off, which brings up this, but it'll be probably full screen and you haven't used it. And you may be thinking, well, what am I supposed to do with this? Well, if you hit Z, it brings up this menu, and while this menu is active, you have the ability to manipulate and move around this image and place it where you want. The interface is a bit weird, a bit confusing to start with, but fairly, pretty well-known commands like scale. Just basically drag it around like this and it scales up and down. It's like an iPod kind of feel. There is opacity as well, so you can sort of fade that out a little bit so you can see what you're doing underneath. And the idea is that it's like you had a face, you can align it up and stuff, and if you need to nudge it, where's this nudge button? If you need to nudge the photograph to, that maybe you can't actually do that. But there is a way, I think. you can sort of, you know, do things to this image to better match what you're trying to paint underneath. But I found it's a lot nicer, a lot easier, just to simply move the model around. Instead, you know, if you hit Z, you know, you can simply start to move around and paint that on accordingly. Hit Z again, you know, you can move this around, scale it, put the opacity on. But when you're in Z mode, when you hit Z and you're happy with that and you just start to paint, you'll notice, I think it's actually working, let's check that out. Yeah, you can notice all the information from that picture is being shoved onto there, being projected directly on, which is pretty invaluable really sometimes, you know, especially when you're doing people's faces and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just a little thing I thought you'd find useful, you know, if you wanted to do some like really realistic texturing for stuff. Just gonna Control Z that out, and I have undone my fill, which I'm just gonna, you know, pull back. What's a colour fill? Fill object. Now, that hasn't worked, has it? Okay. This fill object again. Okay, that was weird. So I get lagged so much, making the colour is filled with that. The workflow I use for polypaint is the ability to mask cavities, which is under this masking tab, which is also just under your tool palette, and mask by cavities here. Now, the thing about masking cavities is that I was watching this video tutorial once, and the guy said it looks very 8-bit, and I couldn't help but agree with him. It does look 8-bit. 8-bit meaning it's very pixelated in areas, and it does take quite a lot of effort to sort of smooth it out and average it out and get a nicer looking texture. But I really do like the effect you get from cavities. I'm just going to play around with this now. Mask by cavity, and because it's so dark, you probably won't see much what's going on here. I'm just going to turn off view mask here. The brush I like to use, which I think is a bit weird, is clay tubes. Now, remember each brush has its own separate settings, so you'll have to change this out to RGB. Make sure, never ever, you know, always check this before you start sculpting away. You know, I'm going to start quite harshly on that. You know, this sort of pale blue. But the reason why I like clay tubes is because it already has some sort of cavity information on that brush. Not cavity detection, sorry. That it can, it's sort of like, it's hard to describe, but you'll sort of get a feel for it the more you use it. And what I like to do to begin with is put a bit of colour spray on, and there's like a soft version of that. This soft speckly alpha is nice. I'm just going to sort of, you know, just start to paint out his belly area, really. You know, like on sharks when they have like, I don't know, they have like a sort of white area around their chest, or the underside of them. And I'm just, you know, basically copying that design that sharks have, really, as that is the animal inspiration that, you know, is on this model. So I'm adding some of that in there. I'm just going to swipe this off to get rid of the alpha that I have there, and I'm just going to start to paint now a little bit more, so it starts to really sort of get rid of the darkness, a really sort of gradual and nice pace. You know, it's not too harsh, it's not too overbearing and stuff like that. You know, polypaint is it's kind of delicate in a sense. But like the modelling process, it's just a gradual build-up of detail, I guess. It takes a while before it starts to look like anything. But for now, I'm really sort of quite lost in terms of what I'm trying to achieve now. I'm just kind of winging it with sharks in mind. And I'm going to go for like a much, I don't know, like a paler sort of darker blue. I'm just going to start to, I'm going to mask out again a little bit. I'm going to turn off that view. If you don't turn off view mask, then your colour information will be all weird because you're looking at the mask as well. I'm just going to start to really be a bit more rough with this now. And the reason why the colour is very is quite a wide range of colours is because I'm using colour spray, and what it tries to do is tries to use a range of colours that are based around the colour that you have selected, you know, like blues, purples, greens, you know, it's all relevant to blue. So it's just trying to make it, I don't know, more interesting, I guess, more like skin, as skin's never sort of one specific colour. It's usually a combination of lots of different colours. So, you know, it works really well, even though it looks kind of funky and a bit disco mental at this minute. But, you know, we've been polypainting now for like, you know, a few minutes, so never expect anything to happen fast, you know. I'm not going to bother his feet as he's wearing boots. But the one thing I will say about polypaint is that you should usually paint it as a whole and try and keep it consistent. Yeah. And for now, I'm just going to try a little thing. I'm going to go to my square brush, freehand it, so I can be a bit more specific with the colours now. And I'm just going to start to pick out some areas where I want this to be more blue, especially around here. Switch that round, use my the subversion of this brush, and you can see, I don't know, I like the way this brush operates, you know. I have a really good feeling for it because I've used it quite a lot of times on my other polypainting models, so I know how it sort of works in terms of picking out the cavities that I want to paint, which is cool. The transition at the minute is really harsh, which I'm going to smooth out later on. Sorry, my nose is really itchy. But, you know, don't be that sort of crazy about the colours you get. You know, don't stress over them that much. You know, if they're not spot on or what, you know, you want them to be. As, you know, we always have to take this into Photoshop, and, you know, Photoshop is just the amount of control you have in Photoshop is ridiculous, really. You know, you can do anything. I can make this red with a few clicks in Photoshop, so never ever sort of just go mental about what colours you're getting in Zbrush, because there is always the Photoshop stage to correct or enhance whatever you've got. All you need to think about at this point in time is making sure that everything looks decent enough in terms of it complementing the modelling that you've got, you know. But at this point in time now, I'm just trying to figure out what colours I want. What I'm trying to think about here is the colour scheme, really. You know, what I want to be white, what wants to be blue. Thinking about making the underside of his biceps kind of blue, not blue, white, kind of, you know, like the way our arms work, you know, when you know the underside is always like uber white because the sun can't get there and stuff. So I'm going to sort of give him a similar feel to that. Get some of that palmage. I'm not going to bother with the legs as much because they are hidden. It's just his ankles that need doing. This hip area needs doing. Let's get a bit of this purpley blue coming through on his hips, top of the arse. Make sure we don't neglect these areas under his arms. That's pretty much it now though. We've gone around the whole model using this. I'm just going to delete whatever mask I've got there, and I'm going to go for a bit more. I don't want it to be too kind of weird. I'm going to turn back onto spray. Try this helper out. Try and just break away from this harshness what we've got going on. Even out the tone of this a little bit. But you can really sort of see what I meant about, you know, the more sort of intricate detail and cavities you have on the model, the more interesting the polypaint is going to be, because it picks up all this information when you use the cavity masking and all that good stuff. There's a bit of a lag going on for me. It's always been an issue for me though, the whole lagging sort of stuff. But I can't really hide pieces off and work on them individually, because it would end up having a really inconsistent colour scheme, which just doesn't work, you know. You know, a character's colours are very important. They have to sort of, you know, just fit together like a jigsaw or something, you know. Just trying to get rid of some of this darkness, but, you know, leaving hints of it there to really sort of bring out the forms of this thing's muscles and stuff, so. Using some Z-sub there to sort of go back in with that dark brush, you know, just give it a sort of I don't know, just, there's pushing and pulling the different colour ranges. Trying to give it that sort of like high dynamic range sort of feel to it. But it is quite amazing how drastically polypaint can bring out something, details that you never even knew were there. It's like pressing sharpen more in Photoshop or something. You've ever done that on like a picture of your face or something, you just, the amount of detail that just gets brought forth is crazy. It's pretty much using that. It's looking a bit noisy at the minute. Just sort of really define these areas a little bit better. I'm going to go around once again. But, it's starting to pick out all the sort of major stuff. Let me just turn on freehand. Maybe come on with my square alpha as well. I'm just going to sort of really start to pick out big chunks of detail. Really need to stand out more than the other bits. Try not to make it look blotchy and stuff. I'm going to switch back to spray, the same alpha I was using before, and go to that similar setup and just start to paint in these muscle groups down here. Start to fill in some areas a little bit. The thing that you need to take into consideration though when you're doing this is that this is only the information you get out of Zbrush. When you actually come to put a texture together, you have all the different maps that you're going to get, from this model that you can combine, tweak, use different blend modes on them, filters in Photoshop, and you can enhance it so much more than what it is right now. But I'm not saying like to slack off and just don't put any effort into it. You need to put a lot of effort into this, because all the tiny sort of details and the pores and the skin and stuff, you can't really get it anywhere else but from the polypaint, as the detail is just the amount of it is quite ridiculous, really. And this method, this masking of cavities, is pretty much the only effective way of just surfacing that detail, getting it there, getting it in the texture, I mean, it may look 8-bit here. Well, it doesn't even look that bad, to be honest with you. It doesn't look 8-bit to me. And then you have the process of it going through. You have to put it into a Photoshop file. And it has to be sized to whatever specifications of the engine are. Usually 1K, 1024 by 1024. And when you downsize all this micro detail like this, you know, you won't even notice it being 8-bit or, you know, pretty harsh. It'll look awesome. I'm going to come in with like a much more paler white brush in a second to do that area. Make a sort of dark area there to bring out these cavities and this bit here. Make it more sort of brutal looking. Same with that bit. Getting a lot of lag. I'm going to try use this square brush a little bit. Just switch it around. So if I use the minus sort of area of this brush, it just sort of skims across the highest sort of cavity points due to the detection that it's already got sort of assigned on this brush. This is the way that clay tubes has been sort of built to have that sort of cavityness about it. It's pretty cool for painting. You know, you can just really sort of work around pretty quickly, and pick out areas where they need to be. It's like I'm not even using a mask right now, you know. So all this brush and how it works. But I think I will probably tweak this colour quite a bit in Photoshop. Make it a more sort of silvery kind of colour. It does look a bit too purple right now. But to be honest with you though, just the sort of the intricateness about using this method, you know, of painting the cavities and stuff is just completely, what's the word I'm looking at? It's just, there's just no other way, you know. I mean, I could not imagine painting this level of detail on a texture, you know, in Photoshop or something. I couldn't imagine doing it. I mean, how would you? It was just super crazy, you know. Right, I'm going to try to sort out the middle bit a little bit. Just kind of get that whiteness coming through that sharks have. Without removing too much of the detail, obviously. kind of looking like bone or something in this area. Continue that up there a little bit. Try and keep the transition smooth. I'm not using any masks here. This is quite literally just clay tubes and the cavity information that I'm getting out of the brush, which is awesome. So it's just so fast, you know, for doing stuff like this. Get this belly area in there. Yep, nice bit of lag there. I'm just trying to make the fall off or transition between this white and the blue as seamless as possible, really. Add some dark areas where they need to be. With this brush though, it's just never that easy. Mainly with this brush, it's just easy to do that. I can really just sort of quickly define this as much as I want and need. Especially this undershell area here, which I want to be quite shallow. Right, so we'll come back in now with a bit more like blue. And just going to come in now a little bit, so to pick out some of these areas. We have this information, these cavities. Try not to go too crazy on them, like. Just try to pick out main points of interest, which I feel would benefit from being a little bit darker. Not looking like a shark yet though. Shit, I missed out the bicep area. Biceps I want also to be sort of this whitish sand colour. Okay, I'm just going to have to apply the mask again. That's done. I'm just going to paint in these areas now of whiteness. But this is pretty much going to be it, you know. just keep repeating this process until I am satisfied with my amount of blend and just general tonage. I think there's a way to yeah, if you press C whilst hovering over like a colour or something, you can colour drop that, just like in most popular packages, which is handy. Have you got any photographs there? I should have probably colour dropped that shark skin. Oh well. And get rid of that now, and just start to fade out this 8-bitness. What have we got going on? But that is the thing about polypainting though, is that, you know, it's only going to be as good as what your mesh is, you know. Don't think of polypainting as this magical sort of way out, you know, to correct all your mistakes and just make your model look awesome. You know, it's just, you're only going to get out of polypainting what you've put into the sculpting phase, really. I would have liked to have gone, you know, once I get a better computer and I can get into like, you know, the 20 million poly count, you know, kind of radius, it'll all be a lot smoother on this stage, a hell of a lot smoother, because, you know, just the amount of polygons that are there are going to decrease the amount of, you know, you can just see individual polygons, and the colour difference between that and the polygon next to them are just totally different. You know, you won't get that as much. But even so, I mean, when you look at it from this distance, you can't really tell at all, to be honest with you. Try and keep up with that white underside feel I'm gonna go for. It's looking a bit noisy around there, I'll have to sort that out. I'm just going to go back in now with the square brush. Enhance this white even further. And you'll notice the more and more sort of times you go over this, you know, with the different colours, different tones and stuff, the better it'll become. And it's just a nice gradual build up of awesomeness, really. And then once you're happy with that, there's two options you can have. You can do a render in Zbrush using different compositing layers. So once you have a polypaint layer and colour information on the Zbrush model, there is quite a lot of things you can do with it. gonna sort of peel back some of that darkness a little bit. But this is pretty much the work for all polypainting really. There's not much else to say. So without further ado, I'm going to probably pause this video now, finish this up, do his pants, clothing or whatever in the same fashion. Then I'm going to try and pose this thing. But that's pretty much what it's looking at right now. It's pretty basic. It's pretty just, you know, cavity, you haven't even touched his head yet. Still trying to figure out this chest area, you know, keeping it white and blue kind of scheme going on. But yeah, let's just bring back his clothes, turn that back up to white. That's pretty much it, man. I think I need to broaden this up a little bit more. But I can really, he's starting to solidify a little bit, you know. It's looking pretty cool. I'm gonna get some proper reference and sharks instead of winging this. You cannot wing colour at all, you know. Everyone has their own distorted version of what they think colours are. That's pretty much it, guys. I'm gonna save that now. Take its time. File's starting to get complicated. Alright. Pause. Stop. Alright, cool. Just pretty much finished the shark. I'll show you what it turned into. Read up. May as well just show you the pose done, really. I mean, same thing. I made a pedestal for it as well. But that's pretty much what I got with the polypaint and the pose as well. And I also decided to make a little platform thing for him to stand on to make him more grounded. But yeah, I just basically went for like you know how typical sharks have like their colours laid out on their skin, like a white kind of underside and then blue sort of back. Colours are a bit saturated, but it doesn't really matter too much in Zbrush because you can always tweak and edit the saturated values and stuff in Photoshop when you render or, you know, bake into a texture. But you know, that's pretty much it, guys. Shark's done in terms of ZBrushing. I could build a low-res version for this for a game model version, but I don't think I will. I'm just going to leave it as a standalone ZBrush project. I'll show you the final render as well, which I will link in the description if you want to look at it without the video distorting it or whatever. But yeah, it's got a lot of dark values in it, so it's a bit dark, a bit rushed, but that's the final render of this guy. May take another one for the portfolio, try and get a bit more light in there. But that's pretty much it. It's pretty much project finished for me. Yeah. I think maybe I should talk about how I posed it and stuff, or the thing about posing is because before I'm just going to his plugins here. I use the Subtool Master, Transpose Master, and if you press this button, it calculates. Well, it takes into all your subtools into consideration. It makes a sort of low-res version of them, but it's not really good. You know, I posed it because it makes it all one mesh, so you can select everything and mask everything out and move it. But I had a lot of problems with it, really. I mean, this box of shorts ended up like going all weird and didn't even actually get posed up properly. So what I ended up doing is just literally just selecting the body, hitting solo, going down to the lowest division of that subtool, which I think is, yeah, that one. Just turn off polypaint, and all I do is just go into my rotate guess it's just, I don't know, rotate tool, I don't know, but hold control, and when you drag, you sort of can select areas according to the topology of them. So it's just this process of just finding a nice mask and smoothing out the mask, and then from there just using the transpose tool as like a kind of a bone or skeleton, just to sort of move this around to where you want it to be. It's a pretty sort of kind of just wing it kind of process, you know. You'll get a feel for it the more you do it. But posing itself, like, you need to think of what it is you want to do with this thing. I was going for like I don't know, like one of his friends had been having a go at him, and it's just like, hey man, chill out, man. That kind of sort of feel. But that's pretty much posing in a nutshell. And then for the rest of it, you know, like, because these are sort of like almost static objects for me in this particular render, you know, I could just move them around, just using transpose and just moving them and rotating them into position. That's pretty much how I put them to where they are. As for the shoes, I merged them all down in my subtool palette by pressing merge down. Just make sure you have all the correct subtools in order while you do that, because you cannot undo merging. And I literally just rotated them, took them a bit more natural stance. That's pretty much it with that. But you know, just go in. You know, when you move the body around, twisted the body around and stuff like that, you might have to sort of move individual pieces around and stuff like that to sort of get a better fit on stuff. So that is pretty much all posing is though in Zbrush. If you've got the lower res version of the model, and you can quite easily, you know, put some complicated poses in there and keep all the detail pretty nice. Yeah. This pedestal is just supposed to be like some sort of little bit of sand because he's a shark, obviously, and I don't know, I thought it'd be quite cool to have a little thing to stand on instead of it just being like a random character just, you know, floating in nothingness when I rendered it out. It just really finishes it off, having a pedestal. I'm not going to talk too much about rendering because I'm still I'm quite new to it myself. You know, I haven't sort of delved into the rendering side of 3D art. You know, I'm quite a sort of noob at it. But the way I rendered that is you never just render one image. You always render different passes to composite in Photoshop. And I did use this BPR. If you go to the render tab here, there's a couple of settings that you can change here. You know, you want some shadows and ambient occlusion and stuff, but when you hit BPR, under this render pass properties here, you'll have all these things and they'll be filled with images. Let me just hit. It's going to come through and calculate all this stuff, and you'll see it updating your thing. But you can see all the different passes that Zbrush has given you. And if you click that, it's going to bring up this window for you to save it out, which is pretty nice. And the way that you change the lights for BPR is you have to use the main light thing here, and you can see it updating, which is cool. So just, you know, just play around with like you know, trying to just figure out where your main light source is. You know, I always try to go for like the sun or something, but I don't know, it just ended up being all really dark and stuff, you know, because my settings were a bit weird and my lighting was a bit, you know, I don't think I compensated too well for that, you know, shaded area. But I don't know, it looks kind of cool. It's okay. It's not the worst render in the world. In terms of just showing what I've got, you know, it does the job. But like I said though, I'm not going to try and explain rendering too much because I don't want to be giving people, you know, false information. As rendering is an area of 3D where I need to learn myself. I need to, you know, I need to figure that out. Probably get some training on that, so I know what I'm doing when I come to it. But you know, that's pretty much it. It's pretty much done for me. It's a pretty successful project in my opinion. It is. I think it's kind of unique in its own little sense. Kind of weird. I think it would probably look better if it had some, you know, like cloth detail, you know, like denim and stuff like that, and you know, proper like leather boots and stuff. I don't know. But I could do that in the gamers version if I ever do it for this one. But the reason why I'm not going to do it gamers model for this is because I just don't feel the need to, really. I mean, it's a pretty random character, really. I'm just going to leave it as a Zbrush sculpt. But the next project that I've got in mind, I'm going to do a game model version of it, and I'll put it into UDK and stuff like that. Close it down. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the shark, guys. I'll link this up in the description box, like I said, so you can see it, and you know, have a look for yourself if you're interested. Right, next project will be coming up soon, so I'm quite excited about it. Cheers for watching if you did.